Hello, in this video we are going to see how you can use virtual thread in a Quarkus 3 applications. So we are going to implement a simple CRUD application and see when and when you can't use virtual threads. So let's have a look. We are going to re-implement the traditional to-do app that you have used with Quarkus, that we have used with Quarkus for over the past few years. So first it's your general dependencies like Hibernate validator, JDBC Postgres, because I'm going to use a Postgres database, Hibernate with Panache, and REST is reactive. This is very important because that part supports virtual thread. It's not the case of REST is Classic. Another thing you need to know before using virtual thread is that you need a JVM which supports virtual thread, so at least 19. In my case, I'm using 20. And you also need to have this compiler arguments enable preview because virtual thread in Java 20 are still in preview mode. Once you have done that, well, the code doesn't change much. It's very simple synchronous code. So your Panache entity has no change. It's a regular Panache entity. And your to-do resource is slightly different. Well, the main difference is that you have this run on virtual thread here. That run on virtual thread annotation means that Quarkus is going to invoke that method on a virtual thread instead of on a regular worker thread. And so you can annotate your method with that annotation to indicate that you are willing to invoke these methods on a virtual thread. You can't use run on virtual thread when you have add transactional. The reason is that virtual thread still have many limitations, especially pinning and monopolization. And typically when you use transactional, you need a transaction manager, and the one used in Quarkus is still pinning the carrier thread. So right now you can't really use or combine run on virtual thread and transactional. That's also the reason why run on virtual thread is an explicit choice. It's because right now it's still not safe to enable that mode by default or to have a global settings. You really need to know when it's safe to be used or when it's not. However, once you have decided that it's safe for you, then you can use it. So the first thing you want to check is that you have a JDK which supports virtual thread, in my case Java 20, and then you will use your traditional dev mode and it will work out of the box. So that's our dev mode here. All right. The dev services are starting for my Postgres database. I'm going to my browser and here it is. Hello. So that should be fine. Yes. All right. So let's check that we are actually called on a virtual thread. So I'm going to write a small message here with the name of the thread. Thread is, current thread. All right. And then I go back here, I refresh, and I have a message, and I've been called on a virtual thread. So that's what we wanted to have. So before letting you do that on your side, I want to talk about testing. So when implementing your test, and if your application is using virtual thread, you also need to have this arg line here with the enable preview flag. Same reason as for the compiler, you need to grant access to the virtual thread API, but I heavily recommend that flag too, which will indicate if your code is safe or not. So if you're on a virtual thread and at some point that virtual thread is pinning the carrier thread, so basically not behaving as expected, then the stack trace will be printed. So what you can do is actually try to use @run on virtual thread, execute your test, and check if inside your log you have such kind of stack trace or not. If you don't, then it's safe to use run on virtual thread. If you have stack traces, then it's better to not use run on virtual thread and use a regular worker thread. So now that you know how to use virtual thread in a Quarkus 3 application, I want to give you the full code of the example I've used today, as well as a link to the virtual thread guides of Quarkus explaining you how it works under the hood. Bye bye.